Queen of Tears follows the glamorous chaebol heir and department store CEO Hong Hae-In and her husband, the intelligent countryside-raised lawyer, Baek Hyun-Woo. Initially meeting when Hae-In was working as an intern for the company, Hyun-Woo fell for her, not knowing that she was the granddaughter of the Queen's Group chairman. Now, 3 years after getting married, the pair has turned into a married couple that doesn't even sleep in the same bedroom. While Hae-In just busies herself with work, Hyun-Woo is treated like the bottom level of the family, made worse by the fact that he lives in the same house as Hae-In and her whole family. One day, Grace, a private secretary who is in charge of the family and is famous for matching wealthy couples, tells Hyun-Woo that Hae-In hasn't included him in her will. Hyun-Woo is furious. All this work to stay in her family, and for what? Later in the day, Hae-In asks Hyun-Woo to go on a drive with her, but instead, Hyun-Woo goes to visit his hometown and promptly tells his parents and siblings that he has made up his mind. He is going to divorce Hae-In. Back at home, Hyun-Woo, divorce papers in hand, strides up to Hae-In's room. But just as he is about to ask her to break up, Hae-In says something way more shocking. She only has 3 months to live. According to Hae-In, the doctors told her that she has a rare tumor that cannot be cured through surgery or medicine. And apparently, this illness can result in sudden hallucinations, headaches, and memory loss. Hearing this news, Hyun-Woo is shocked and quickly hides the divorce papers. Instead, he tells her that he loves her and starts crying, which naturally catches Hae-In off guard. Determined that her family must not find out, the only person Hyun-Woo tells this news to is his friend and, conveniently, divorce lawyer Kim Young-gi. Together, the friends celebrate. Hyun-Woo has found a way to escape his horrible marriage, and he gets to avoid divorce, which would mean facing the terrifying wrath of Hae-In's family. Young-gi also suggests to Hyun-Woo that if he can win Hae-In's heart in the months before she dies, Hyun-Woo may just be able to inherit a portion of her wealth after all. Taking his friend's words to heart, Hyun-Woo starts spoiling Hae-In by buying her flowers, etc., surprising Hae-In as well as her family. Before going to sleep, Hyun-Woo looks up just how many miracles are associated with rare diseases, but is startled to find out that it happens more often than you'd think. When Hae-In looks into the room, she is touched to see Hyun-Woo passed out after researching her illness, and she decides to herself that she must live for Hyun-Woo's sake. Later, at a brand event, Hae-In runs into her ex, Yoon Sung, whom she used to date in college and who has gone on to become a business tycoon. A few days later, Yoon Sung joins the family for their annual hunt, where Hyun-Woo becomes more and more bothered by his closeness with his wife. Then, while the family is hunting, suddenly Hae-In gets a hallucination and gets lost by herself. Alone and hopelessly off track, Hae-In suddenly finds herself face-to-face with a charging boar. Luckily, just in time, Hyun-Woo shows up and shoots the boar straight between the eyes, saving Hae-In. Later at dinner, we learn that Yoon Sung is not an American citizen, as was previously thought, but was actually adopted when he was 13 by a family that died just before he graduated from university. After the meal, when Hae-In and Hyun-Woo are forced to share a room after a long time, Hae-In is surprised to find herself flustered by how handsome her husband looks. Is Hyun-Woo's charm strategy working? A few days later, Hae-In goes to a meeting that turns into a dinner with Yoon Sung. When Yoon Sung arrives at the home with a drunk Hae-In, Hyun-Woo knows for sure. Yoon Sung wants to get between them, but it's hardly working, especially as Hyun-Woo also finds himself feeling attracted to Hae-In, even buying her new comfortable shoes to wear while she works. As a result, Hyun-Woo feels super conflicted when Hae-In calls to tell him that she has found a cell therapy organization that can help her and that she has 51% odds of success. Can he survive 50 more years with Hae-In and his in-laws? But as we see Yoon Sung and Grace scheming, the illness might not be the couple's only issue. As we find out later, Yoon Sung is planning to collect Queen's Group shares by tricking the directors into putting their stocks up as collateral. Basically, they want to take over the company. Although Hae-In is excited about this new cell therapy, her excitement is crushed when the doctor tells Hae-In that her white blood cell count is too low for the cell therapy and that the researchers in Germany won't perform the procedure. But Hae-In is determined to go anyway. As a result, when Byom-ja, Hae-In's rather eccentric aunt who found out about her illness by accident, sees Hae-In leaving for Europe, she goes to Hyun-Woo, who, after hearing this news, decides to follow her to Germany. But just like her doctor in Korea told her when Hae-In arrived in Germany, the doctor refused to operate on Hae-In due to her low count of white blood cells. Depressed and alone, Hae-In walks around one of the places she had visited in Germany with Hyun-Woo for their honeymoon, when suddenly she is surprised to see none other than Hyun-Woo. Realizing their love for each other, the couple kisses and Hyun-Woo promises to be there for his wife. Later, after Hyun-Woo prays in a church, Hae-in receives an email from the research center about a possible therapy method. Apparently, Hyun-Woo had gone to the doctor and used his lawyer skills to threaten to sue the hospital if they didn't help, and it worked. At the hospital, Hae-in hallucinates about the day that she and her older brother got in a mysterious sea accident, in which she was saved, but her brother ended up drowning, which led her mother to neglect and blame Hae-in for her older brother's death. Back in Korea, the CCTV film of the hunting trip requested by Hyun-Woo, who was suspicious about the incident, is being restored. As it turned out, someone had cut the fence to intentionally let the boar in. Who could do this? Turns out it was Chon Da-hae, who is Hae-in's sister-in-law and the wife of her brother, Soo-chol. As we learn, Da-hae had, in fact, only gotten married to Soo-chol to carry out Yoon-sung's plan, having met Yoon-sung when she had been living in the same orphanage, and is actually 5 years older than her husband. At the same time, the chairman learns about a whistleblower who has exposed the embezzlement of one of Queen's bookkeepers and concludes that the whistleblower must be someone close to him. Telling all this to his girlfriend, a younger woman named Sul-hee, whom Beomja deeply distrusts, they find a wiretap in the room and follow the signal to none other than Hyun-Woo's room. Forcing their way into Hyun-Woo's safe, they find the divorce papers that he'd been planning to give to Hae-in. When Hae-in gets news of these papers, she is heartbroken and immediately packs up to leave Germany. Finding herself suddenly on the road, Hyun-Woo just barely manages to save Hae-in from an oncoming truck, but is surprised when she says he should have just let her die. When the procedure fails to boost Hae-in's white blood cell count, Hyun-Woo decides he must give her a reason to live and intentionally steers her toward seeking revenge against him. It sadly works. Arriving back home, Hae-in meets with Yoon-sung, who asks her to get a divorce and tells Hae-in that he wants to marry her instead. Hae-in doesn't love this idea. She may be angry with Hyun-Woo, but she has no plans to be with Yoon-sung, and thank goodness for that, because Yoon-sung is sketchy. Not only does he steal Hae-in's medication, but, as we learn later, he is actually Sul-hee's son, and they have been plotting to take down Queen's group for a long time. As for Sul-hee, Beomja learns that her real name is Oh Sun-young, and that she has been to jail before for adultery, even delivering a child, presumably Yoon-sung, in prison. But, hold on, why would Yoon-sung take Hae-in's medication? Well, he's noticed that she wasn't well and has been trying to find out what's wrong, but discovering their anti-cancer pills devastates him. Growing up without a family, Yoon-sung actually once saved Hae-in from a dog and has kept the necklace that she dropped that day all these years. Having loved her all these years, Yoon-sung is determined to have Hae-in as his own this time. As for Hae-in and Hyun-Woo, although Hyun-Woo is no longer living with the family and Hae-in has hired Vincenzo as her fancy divorce lawyer, she still longs for him. Hae-in even follows Hyun-Woo to his favorite restaurant, where she overhears him telling Young-gi that he still wants to be by her side. Upon hearing that, Hae-in desperately wants to live now, so she can stay by Hyun-Woo's side. Back at the house, around the chairman's birthday, the chairman makes Sul-hee his legal guardian, which proves to be a fatal mistake. A few days later, the chairman is playing a go-like game with Sul-hee, when he is drugged by Sul-hee, which not only paralyzes him, but also puts him in a coma. With Sul-hee now the acting chairman, the whole family is thrown to the street and forced to go to the only place that will take them, Hyun-Woo's countryside family. With Hae-in and her whole family staying at her ex-husband's family house, Yoon-sung is less than pleased and decides to go through her room, where he finds out that she only has a few months left to live. Behind Hyun-Woo's back, Hae-in starts preparing for a press conference with Yoon-sung to return to her original position. However, at the conference, Hae-in, instead, exposes how Yoon-sung has been threatening to expose her condition if she doesn't come back. The public confession of her terminal illness sends shockwaves through her family. Simultaneously, the chairman, who was transferred to another hospital, gains consciousness. However, he has temporary dementia. After waking up in the hospital due to collapsing at the conference, Hae-in confesses her love for Hyun-Woo. Meanwhile, her mother, filled with regret for past neglect and blaming Hae-in for their first child's death, apologizes profusely to Hae-in. As for the chairman, having moved back to the house, Sul-hee demands him to tell her where he has hidden his secret slush fund that Sul-hee and Yoon-sung are relying on to buy the rest of the stocks they need to take over Queens. Hyun-Woo and Hae-in have also emphasized the importance of the slush fund. It's a race. Who will find the cash first? But first, Yoon-sung has decided it is time to get rid of Hyun-Woo. One night, after checking out a potential slush fund location, Hae-in gets into what she thinks is Hyun-Woo's car. However, it is a hallucination, and she is actually in Yoon-sung's car. Deciding it wouldn't hurt to poke around the house for clues to the slush fund, Hae-in agrees to go with Yoon-sung. While Hae-in is with Eun-sung, Hyun-Woo is hit across the head and wakes up in a car next to a broker who is preparing to kill him. Back at the house, Hae-in heads straight to her grandfather's room, where she is surprised to see his dementia state. However, before she leaves, the chairman gives Hae-in a vital clue by mentioning something about an air raid shelter. Getting lost as she leaves the manor, Hyun-Woo comes to Hae-in's rescue. As it turned out, Hyun-Woo had defended his life by explaining to the broker that he would get a 20-year sentence for murder, which is way worse than a 3-year sentence for fraud, which is what he was up for. With Hyun-Woo safe and Hae-in's new clue, they sit down to study the original floor plan of the house and find that the elevator that is connected to the chairman's room could have 2 doors, one of which leads to a panic room on the other side. However, little do they know that at that exact time, Yoon-sung and Sol-hee are already searching the house. The next day, another shock arrives for the Hongs when they learn that the chairman has died by falling down the stairs. With the chairman no longer in the picture, Sol-hee no longer has any power. But it might not matter because when Hae-in and Hyun-Woo enter the panic room hidden behind the elevator, they find that Sol-hee and Yoon-sung have already moved the money. Preparing to move back to Seoul, Hyun-Woo suddenly gets a call from the German hospital, which tells him that they have developed a treatment for Hae-in, but it would result in Hae-in losing all of her memories. Deciding to keep this side effect a secret from Hae-in, knowing that she would most likely not go for it if she knew it might mean losing her memories, the family celebrates the great news. The news even reaches Yoon-sung, who spots an opportunity for himself and responds by ordering the staff to clear all of Hyun-Woo and Hae-in's stuff that could hold their memories. On the verge of getting the only treatment that can save her life, Hyun-Woo tells Hae-in about the side effects, and predictably, Hae-in immediately leaves, determined to live and die with her memories. But she might not even get the chance because, as it turns out, Hae-in isn't even safe in Germany. Sensing something wrong after getting a strange phone call from Grace, Hyun-Woo rushes towards the car that Hae-in is in, spotting a truck hurtling toward it, breaking through the windows with his hands to save Hae-in. Imagine how relieved Hyun-Woo is to see Hae-in walking toward him perfectly fine. It turns out Hae-in had never been in the car to begin with, having gotten out to buy some 4-leaf clovers. Shocked to his core, Hyun-Woo breaks down. Seeing her husband as a complete mess, Hae-in agrees to get the surgery, and in the hospital, she gives him a diary where she has written everything she remembers. However, instead of being there for her the second she wakes up as he promised, the minute Hae-in goes in, the cops bust in and arrest Hyun-Woo for murdering the broker who had turned up dead after he failed to kill Hyun-Woo. And Yoon-sung goes to see Hae-in instead. When Hae-in wakes up, she tells Yoon-sung that Baek Hyun-Woo is the only name that she remembers. But he explains that Hyun-Woo is her criminal ex-husband and that he, Yoon-sung, is the one that she loves. Arriving in Korea healthy but without her memories, Hae-in starts to get curious about this criminal ex-husband of hers and goes to visit poor Hyun-Woo, who is in prison. However, she struggles to believe anything he says. After Hyun-Woo is cleared of charges, Hae-in starts following Hyun-Woo, even stalking him all the way to his hometown, where she sees how close he is to his family. And although Yoon-sung has Hae-in, he starts to become more and more erratic, freaking out every time Hae-in is out of his eyesight. After Hyun-Woo warns Hae-in to doubt everything, Hae-in finds the notebook that she wrote in Germany. Reading her writing, she remembers her love for Hyun-Woo and goes out to find him. But then, as they are about to cross the road, Hae-in is kidnapped and Hyun-Woo is hit by a car. Kidnapped and taken to the hunting lodge by Yoon-sung to calm him down, Hae-in agrees to marry him the next day. At the same time, Hyun-Woo, despite having his ribs and liver ruptured in the car accident, and Young-gi show up at the hunting grounds, as well as Sol-hee, who has found that Yoon-sung has moved her precious slush fund. Eavesdropping on Yoon-sung and Sol-hee's conversation, Hae-in learns that it was Sol-hee who had messed with the boat that fateful day at the beach and was responsible for her brother's death. Spotting Hae-in in the reflection on the glass, Yoon-sung chases after her. Luckily, at that exact moment, the lights go out, and Hyun-Woo comes to rescue her. When Yoon-sung catches up to the couple, rifle in hand, he begs Hae-in to come with him, but when she refuses, he threatens to shoot her. Thinking that it is better for Hae-in to die than be with Hyun-Woo, Yoon-sung pulls the trigger, but instead of hitting Hae-in, Hyun-Woo takes the bullet. The surrounding army of police shoots Yoon-sung the minute he fires, killing him. Rushing Hyun-Woo to the hospital, everyone waits for him to get through the surgery. Luckily, Hyun-Woo makes it through safely, and Hae-in's mom even figures out that it was actually not the first time that Hyun-Woo had saved Hae-in. Apparently, that day, at the beach, it had been Hyun-Woo who had dove into the ocean and rescued Hae-in. Once Hyun-Woo is better, the family takes Sol-hee to court where her crimes come to light, both her drugging of the chairman and her murder of his oldest grandson. With Sol-hee finally back in jail, Hae-In returns to her job, and Hyun-Woo proposes to her. Queen of Tears finishes with a married Hyun-Woo and Hae-In visiting Germany with their daughter several years later, and closes with a senior Hyun-Woo visiting Hae-In's gravestone around 2074.